Hi, let's take a brief look back at last week. What gets measured gets managed was a famous Peter Drucker saying. Churn rate is how often you are turning your customers over. In its simplest form, it is calculated by dividing the number of customer cancellations within a time period by the number of active customers at the start of that period. If we had 100 active customers at the start of the period and 37 cancellations during the period, then 37 divided by 100 equals 0.37, and then we move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a percentage sign so that we have a 37% churn rate. Customer retention refers to a certain point in the customer life cycle, and it can be measured monthly, quarterly, or annually, depending on the business. There are two different ways to calculate retention. The first is the customer retention rate, the CRR. Customer retention rate is the percentage of customers you keep relative to the number you had at the start of your period. This does not count new customers. It is the reverse of customer churn. There are three pieces of information you need to calculate customer retention. 1, the number of customers at the end of a period. 2, the number of new customers acquired during that period. And 3, the number of customers at the start of that period. We are interested in the number of customers remaining at the end of the period without counting the number of new customers acquired. The number of customers at the end of a period minus the number of customers at the start of that period divided by the number of new customers acquired during that period will give us the CRR. So we had 100 customers at the end of the period and 75 at the start of the period. From the 100, minus 40 new customers acquired during the period, which equals 60, divided by 75 at the start of the period equals 0.80, and then we move the decimal 2 to the right and add a percentage sign, and we have a customer retention rate, CRR, of 80%. While CRR is a pretty simple calculation, it has a lot of value. You might argue that your revenue and bottom line matter more, and it is okay to lose a few customers along the way. However, think about the cost of acquiring new customers. To keep growing, you need to make up for every customer you lose on top of finding new customers to grow your customer base. You'll actually save money by increasing your CRR. Your CRR also gives you an indication of how loyal your customers are and how good your customer service is. By tracking and benchmarking your CRR, you can find ways to improve these areas of your business. Ideally, as a business, you would like your CRR to reach 100%, which means that you never lose a single customer. That's quite improbable. You should be aiming for 90% or at the very least an 85% customer retention rate. Again, this will vary business to business, which is why it's important to track your own rate and try and improve upon it every month. Next, let's calculate the dollar retention rate. As opposed to the CRR, which measures the customers that renew, dollar retention rate, DRR, measures the dollars that renew. It is generally measured on an annual and/or cohort basis. The important point here is that DRR focuses only on the money, the actual revenue you retain rather than customers. So if your existing customers start paying more through upgrades or other purchases, your DRR might grow even if you've lost some customers. This doesn't mean you should focus only on DRR and ignore CRR. If you are consistently losing customers, at some point you will start losing revenue, no matter how many times your existing customers upgrade. On the flip side, you might see a drop in DRR but a rise in CRR. This would happen if your existing customers start downgrading to lower subscriptions. For example, if a customer changes from a $100 per month subscription to a $50 per month subscription, you might have retained that customer, but you lost 50% of the revenue generated by that customer. If other customers start doing this too, you might see a big hit in your DRR. Let's say your CRR is 90%. If half of your customers drop from $100 to $50, your DRR will consist of half of the customers at the original value, $45, or 45%, and half the customers at half the value, which is 22.5%. So in total, your DRR, your dollar retention rate, is now 67.5%, which is pretty poor. Essentially, both CRR and DRR need to be used hand in hand to get a complete picture of what is happening with your business. To get an even better picture with DRR, you can use cohorts to represent your data. You may see differences in customers you acquired at different points in time. A stark difference in DRR for different cohorts can tell you valuable information about the differences in your customer base and help you generate ideas for how to increase retention for certain groups. Ideally, you want your DRR to be above 100%. This means that you're earning more every period and your company is growing. Many people aim for 110%, but this number might differ for different industries and the life stage of your company. Let's have a great week 8 where we will learn about account management.